What is up, guys? And we are back with another video, and in this video I want to go over every single 4-star in the game and talk about what is their most important constellation. So when I say most important constellation, I mean the constellation that unlocks most of their potential. And there are characters in the game that really don't need constellations, and each constellation is just a small boost. But we're going to go ahead and break down each 4-star and talk about it. And I've seen constellation videos before talking about the best C6 and all this stuff, or the best character at C0, but me personally, I only like to speak on something that I've actually leveled up and tried out myself. So I've actually leveled up every single character to level 80, and I've tried them out for a pretty good time. The only two characters that I don't have level 80 is Xinyan, but I have her leveled up on my free-to-play account. And then Noelle is the only character that I really haven't personally used, so when I give my opinion on Noelle, just keep that in mind. But for the rest of them, I have very good experience with them. I've been using them for a while. And yeah, so this is just my opinion, guys. So if you guys disagree or if you guys have a different opinion, I would love to know down below and why. But yeah, let's go ahead and jump into it, starting with Kaeya. So in my opinion, Kaeya is one of those characters who at C0 is already very strong. Like, I just got C1 Kaeya literally like a couple days ago because he got introduced in the shop, and I've been playing this game since it came out. Not only are his constellations super hard to get because the only place you can really get them is from the standard banner, he really doesn't require them because at C0 I've been using him for a while. He is already a truck and he hits super hard and he can just do so many different things. I think overall, for me personally, the most important constellation that I would want would be his C2, because this constellation basically gives you the potential to increase your burst by 15 seconds, which is pretty good. The only downside to this constellation is you have to defeat an enemy for it to actually stack up and time up. So when you're fighting multiple enemies, this constellation is going to be really good. But if you're fighting bosses or just like a couple enemies, like 2 or 3, then this constellation obviously is not going to be that good. Another really good constellation for him is C6, but if you guys have C6 Kaeya, you guys are already winning in life, so you guys don't even have to worry about this constellation list. Okay, and next up we have Ninngguang, and Ninngguang is a character I've been maining since the beginning of the game, and in my opinion, the most important constellation for Ninngguang by far is going to be C2. The reason why C2 is so good is because if your Jade screen breaks, you can just immediately put another one up. And a lot of people, including me, at the very beginning of the game, thought the Jade screen only broke like over time or if an enemy broke it. But actually, if you use your burst, it actually counts as a Jade screen breaking, so you immediately have another E ready to go. So not only is this doubling her energy recharge, it's basically giving her an additional screen and giving her screen, if you time it right, a 6-second cooldown, which is absolutely insane. So Fichl's interesting because in most cases you're running Fichl as a support, or most of her constellations actually improve her main DPS capabilities. So for main DPS Fichl, the most important constellation for you is going to be C1. And for support Fichl, the most important constellation is going to be C6. So the reason why C1 is so good for main DPS Fichl is because when Oz is down, you're still going to get him to attack by your side. And all his attacks can crit, and he attacks super fast, so you're basically getting an additional 22% attack on every single basic attack. On the other hand, C6 Fichl is absolutely insane. So when you look at regular Oz, you know, he slowly attacks, but with Constellation 6, Fichl's Oz attacks as fast as your active character, meaning the faster your active character attacks, the faster Oz attacks. And it allows for some crazy combos, especially with Child and other characters with Electro Charge. And it just goes absolutely insane. It's like Machine Gun Fichl, but she doesn't even have to be on the field, making her one of the best supports at C6 in the game. Okay, and next up we have Yanfei. In my opinion, hands down, the most important constellation for Yanfei is going to be that C1. And the reason why C1 is so good is because Yanfei already has innate stamina reduction with her Scarlet Seals at 15% per Scarlet Seal. So meaning if you have C0, and you have 3 Scarlet Seals, you're going to be getting a 45% stamina reduction. But with C1 active, that goes all the way up to 75%, which is actually pretty good considering you're going to be spamming your charge attacks a lot with Yanfei. Okay, and next up we have Sucrose, and in my opinion, the most important constellation for Sucrose is also going to be C1 because it gives you an additional charge. And that C1 is so valuable because it gives you 2 charges of your E ability, and if you have the Sacrificial Book, it also gives you an additional charge, meaning your uptime for your burst is going to be really high, and because most likely you're going to be running the Viridescent set, you're always going to have your E ability up ready to go to proc that effect. And I know C6 is really good because it gives you a 20% damage bonus depending on the element you swirled, but like I said at the beginning of the video, this isn't about the most broken constellation, this is about the most important, and in my opinion, the most important by far is going to be C1 for Sucrose. Okay, next up we have Rosaria. So Rosaria, in my opinion, is another character who at C0 is already really good, and what you'll find is most people will run Rosaria as either a sub DPS or a burst DPS, and in that situation, I think personally the most important constellation for her is going to be her C2 and her C6. I think these two are tied for the most important. The reason why C2 is really good is because it increases the duration of her burst by 4 seconds, which basically gives it 2 additional procs, allowing you to melt. And the other reason why I think C6 is really good is also because of her burst, because it reduces enemies' physical resistance by 20%. The other 2 constellations for Rosaria are just meant for main DPS Rosaria because it just increases her energy and attack speed. But overall, most people don't really run Rosaria as a main DPS, even though she can be a very viable one. But in my opinion, it's just more valuable to run her as a burst support / sub DPS, in which case C2 and C6 are going to be the most important. Okay, so next up we have Diona, and Diona is going to be the first character on our list where C6 is her most important constellation. And C6 Diona is just so strong because basically anytime you're below 50% HP, you get additional healing, and unlike Bennet, there's no cap, so you can heal all the way up to full, which is great. Not only that, when you're over 50% HP, which you will be most of the time if you're standing in a circle, you're going to be getting 200 elemental mastery. And Diona being a cryo character, pairing that with someone like a Diluc or any pyro character in that case, is just going to be absolutely insane. Okay, so next up we have Chongyun, and similar to Rosaria, a lot of people don't go main DPS Chongyun because he's just so valuable as a support. And in terms of support, his constellations don't really provide that aside from C2. And I say C2, but Chongyun is also one of those characters who at C0 is already really good. Basically what Constellation 2 does is anyone who's inside Chongyun's E ability and uses their elemental skill or burst has a cooldown reduced by 15%. Which is actually pretty decent if you're in a cryo team comp because it allows for you to quickly spam your abilities, which in addition allows you to quickly regenerate your burst. But other than that, Chongyun is already really good at C0, and unless you're going main DPS Chongyun, you really don't need his constellations at all. Okay, next up we have Beidou, and Beidou is in a very similar situation to Chongyun, and in my opinion, the most important constellation for her is going to be that C2. And just like Chongyun, Beidou is a way more valuable support / sub DPS than she is as a main DPS, but her constellations do enable her to go a main DPS build. The reason why I think C2 is going to be the most important is because it basically doubles your AoE damage of your burst, which you're still going to be using as a sub DPS / support. And other than that, just like Chongyun, she really doesn't need any constellations at all. At C0, she's still going to be hitting like a truck. But C2, in my opinion, is going to benefit her the most, especially in the role she's most known for, which is going to be that sub DPS / support. Okay, and next up we have Razor. In my opinion, Razor's most important constellation is going to be that C4. And the reason why C4 is so good is because you basically have 100% uptime on it, because Razor's E ability only has a 4-second cooldown, allowing you to just always have that 15% reduction in enemies' defense, which is really awesome. Honestly, I think it's a really good constellation, and I think C1 is right up there with it. I would put it in second place in being the second most important constellation for Razor. C6 on the other hand is not really that good because most people build physical Razor, and even though it does add a slight boost in damage, it's not that much because it's doing electro damage, not physical. Okay, and next up we have Lisa, and unlike Kaeya, who's already really good at C0, Lisa really struggles because her most important constellation by far is going to be the C6. See, the problem with Lisa is her strongest ability is going to be her hold E ability, but it only really gets strong when you get all 3 stacks on an enemy, which means you have to cast your E ability 3 times on each enemy in order to get that. But with C6, you don't even have to do that. You just switch in and everyone around you automatically gets 3 stacks, allowing you just to hold your E and just absolutely decimating them. And that's why C6 is just so good, because the ability to not even have to cast your E ability 3 times on each single enemy and just switch in and do it immediately is just unmatched. Okay, and next up we have Xingqi. And Xingqi, even though he has one of the most broken constellations at C6, his most important constellation in my opinion is going to be this C2. Most of the time when you're using Xingqi, you're using him for his burst, and the fact that C2 increases his burst duration and decreases enemies' resistance to Hydro just makes C2 so valuable. And just like some other characters that we talked about, Xingqi is already really dominant at C0. He doesn't really need constellations at all. C2, in my opinion, it just helps out a lot because how early you get it compared to how much it helps your team is pretty important. Especially because it just increases the duration of your burst, which is super important if you're running him in a reaction team or a freeze team. Okay, and next up we have Bennet, and I think it's universally known the best constellation for Bennet is going to be his C1. And let's be honest guys, C1 should have been his C6 because it's just so broken in terms of what it does and how it unlocks Bennett's potential. Because essentially it removes the HP requirement for Bennet and it gives you an additional 20% attack boost. I think that's just absolutely ridiculous, and everyone should go for C1 Bennet. It's just so good and so powerful, and it just provides so much to your team. Okay, and next up we have Xiangling. So for Xiangling, it's kind of a debate between which constellation is the best depending on how you want to build her. And the reason for that is almost all her constellations give a good amount of boost to her pyro damage. And if you guys have heard about the Chinese national team, which is one of the most popular teams in China right now, which includes Xiangling, Xingqi, Bennet, and Chongyun, You guys know how important pyro damage is for Xiangling. I would say all of these constellations are pretty decent. If I had to choose one, I would go with Constellation 4, which increases the pyronado duration by 40%, which can be really useful because you're going to be triggering Melt with that and it's going to do a lot of damage. Okay, and after that we have Amber. So Amber, in my opinion, one of the most important constellations for her is going to be her C2. And the reason I say C2 is because before C2, it takes a while for Amber's bunny to pop unless the enemy breaks it, or you just wait for it to expire. But with C2 available, when you toss your bunny out, you can actually manually detonate it by shooting it, which is actually super useful in having consistent DPS, and actually makes Amber kind of usable, but still not like obviously the very best. And C4 is actually pretty good as well because it allows you to throw out 2 bunnies, but I think that manual detonation is what really makes a big impact for Amber. Okay, and next up we have Noelle. So for Noelle, I actually have 2 constellations which I think are pretty important. The first one being C1 and then the last one being C6. The reason I say C1 is because if you're not going for a main DPS Noelle and are just going for her shield and heals, then C1 is really important, especially in getting consistent heals for your team. And C6 obviously is just so good because it increases the duration of your burst, and not only that, it gives Noelle additional defense-based scaling off of 50% of her defense. That's really important because it allows Noelle to go defense without losing out on too much attack, because a lot of Noelle's abilities and passives scale off of her defense. Okay, and last but not least, we have Xinyan. And similar to Noelle, I want to give Xinyan 2 constellations. I'm going to give her C2 as being very important, as well as her C4. So the reason I say C2 is because it allows you to go burst support Xinyan, because not only do you get 100% crit rate on your burst, allowing you to basically just go full crit damage, it also just gives you a free shield. And since Xinyan E has a pretty long cooldown at 18 seconds, allowing her burst to get a free shield for her is pretty awesome, and in my opinion is the better constellation. But if you are using Xinyan for a physical team, getting C4 can be pretty important because not only does she reduce physical resistance with her passive talent, but also with her E ability if you have C4 unlocked. And that's pretty much it for me, guys. I wanted to do this video now because we're basically done with Leeway and Mondstadt 4 stars, at least in my opinion. Even if we do get some, I don't think it will be anytime soon. I think with Inazuma around the corner, we're going to be getting more Inazuma 4 stars. So that's why I wanted to just make sure you guys knew which was the best constellation for every 4 star we have now. Let me know if you guys want to see a similar thing for 5 stars, or if there's anything you guys disagreed with. I would love to know. But that's pretty much it for me, guys. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you guys next time.